We have Kim Gowland and Vanessa Almeleh here in the house, and we are going to hear directly from them how coaching can transform creative lives, the impact it can make and the kind of results it can get for those creatives. But also they're going to share some tips on how to navigate your, I guess, creative professional journey, if you like. So this has come out of really working with so many creatives who are creative leaders, whether it's in their own practice, but also in their professional field. And we know that there are moments on your creative journey where you need to tap into some strengths, where you need to build some resilience for yourself, where you need to build some confidence so that you can go on being magical and brilliant in your work. And so we wanted to give you an opportunity to hear some of those ways that we know work as coaches, that we work and apply with our clients, but also some practical tips that you can take away. So if you bear with us for at least half an hour, you are going to get some practical tips that you can apply immediately in your own daily life that I know will make a difference. So without further ado, in our sessions, we invite any question. No question is too daft in the chat. If you don't feel like asking a question and having your name in the chat, you can DM Naomi and she will ask for you. Or alternately, you can put it in the chat and we'll pick it up towards the end. So we'll have around 20 minutes for Q&A. And again, your questions enable everybody else to learn, including us. So we want to be able to give you an answer to something so that you walk away with some extra knowledge and insider intel to empower you on your journey. So firstly, thank you so much to Naomi for your help this evening, but also to Kim and Vanessa for giving your time this evening. It's so brilliant to have you with us. So firstly, I'm going to invite you, Kim. Would you do us the honor of introducing yourself, telling us a bit about yourself, why you love coaching, and give us an example of how you've put it into practice?
Thanks, Kerry. Hello, everyone. My name's Kim, and I'm based in Manchester. My background is in museums and galleries. I had a 25-year career in museums and galleries through marketing, audience development, and then in senior leadership. So I was loving developing my teams, individuals, and then I retrained to be a coach in 2018-19. So since then, I've been working with a lot of people in the cultural sector, in the creative sector, and the public sector. I'm really passionate about helping people through times of change and transition and really dealing with the emotional and physical, psychological aspect of that, and also work with people on lots of leadership issues as well. Why I love coaching? Well, I know that coaching really helped me at times when I was feeling less than confident, feeling overwhelmed, feeling confused. I saw that and I know how much it helped me, and I felt like I can do that. I want to help other people. And I know how coaching can be so transformational. You know, you can go from, I've seen my clients go from hopeless to feeling lots of hope, to feeling fearful, from feeling fearful to confident, and to really taking action, making changes in their work and wider lives. So it's a huge privilege to be able to help work people and do that. One of the clients I worked with most recently, she had a very negative experience in her management role. It was quite a kind of toxic culture, as she described it. She felt very diminished. She felt very anxious. She ended up leaving her role and came to me for a number of sessions to really help her build her confidence, reconnect with who she was, to make some choices about where to go next, and to be able to feel like she was acting in alignment with her own values and purpose. And I think we really did that. And she went from a person who felt so low and so anxious and so lost to being so much more confident, so much more purposeful. She's now set up her own consultancy with some other colleagues, and she's working with a whole range of other arts organisations to help them with their work cultures, focus on well-being and compassionate leadership. So it's so exciting to see that.
That's amazing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I have just one really quick question, which I know is how many sessions did you have with that client to get them from A to Z?
It was 6 sessions. So
Amazing.
around leadership transition, 6 sessions over 6 months.
Wow, that's an incredible achievement to move from that feeling stuck and so disillusioned, I'm imagining, in that environment to really stepping into leadership. Thank you so much for sharing, Kim. That's brilliant.
Thanks, Kerry.
Again, guys, if you've got any questions for Kim on that or any other things around leadership, please put them in the chat and we're going to pick them up. But that's brilliant. Thank you. Vanessa, can we call on you to introduce yourself, please, and what you love about coaching and provide an example of how you've worked with a client?
Sure. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be here. So my relationship with the art, my background is over two decades in the art industry. But prior to that, really, I came to art as a young child from quite a difficult upbringing, and art was something that I used. So I was an artist from a very young age before I went actually into the fine art industry, where I stepped into working into auction houses. I set up a modern British art gallery. I was an exhibition coordinator. I worked with artists' estates and museums. I sort of worked alongside an established artist for quite a long time, very much in a sort of coaching, listening role. I also managed an urban contemporary artist as well, and have experience with pop-ups and things like that. Coaching wise, I've been coaching for 3.5 years. I have 2 strands to this. So I'm an associate. My experience so far has been as an associate coach working in the corporate space, but in the social impact space, so companies that do good for the world, where I've worked with founders, executives, directors, and really all levels of people within these quite forward-looking companies. And my private practice, people I really attract, I set up that about the same time. The people I attract in that part of my business, it tends to be entrepreneurs and business founders. Really the sense of kind of loneliness or just doing it on your own, I think they really appreciate the support that they get. Why I love coaching. Coaching's transformed my life. I use it all the time. I have a coach. I change coaches. It's so helpful for clarity of thinking, for confidence, for generating ideas. For self-belief, all sorts of things. And it can really move you quite quickly from a place of stuckness to a place of thriving, actually. So I like to use coaching continually, and I think it's brilliant. So yes, a client example. Recently, I worked with a gentleman in his mid-40s. He employs 10 people. He's in the art industry, has an art trading company. And he came to me saying something has to give. His work-life balance was all out of whack. He had this idea that he couldn't have both family and work side by side. And he was on the verge of selling his business and setting up what he called getting back into a regular job. He said he was totally unable to switch off from work. So over 3 months, which is only 6 sessions, the outcome that he had was a change in mindset. These are his words: structured thinking, how to move forward, direction, accountability, support, personal development, support with getting that work-life balance right. And really important for him, he felt that he could trust me, and trust was a really important component of the work that we did together. Trust was something he needed to do for his team so he could learn to delegate. And we connect every 6 months or so. And I'm really pleased to say that he is very involved with family life, and he's really hit a lot of these amazing targets that he created and designed for himself. So that's my example of a recent client.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. And again, it's remarkable when a client really gives their commitment to the process, which you've both evidenced, just how far you can move and how far you can effect change and get agency for yourself, and reach some new goals. So it's fantastic to hear examples of how you've both done that. I wonder if you could both give us an example of what you think the difference between mentoring and coaching. And I think maybe if we could start with you, Kim, that would be really helpful.
Absolutely. Well, I think mentoring and coaching have similarities in they're both about development and growth. Mentoring, as I see it, it's often someone who's potentially more junior or more experienced in a particular area, who's seeking out someone who might be more experienced and senior in their industry, and is looking to learn something that will help them progress, either into a senior role or around a particular area like finance or business, something like that. With coaching is very coaching the client, and it's structured in that it's a set number of sessions. It's very goal orientated, but also the coach isn't there to advise. The coach is there to create the best space for the coachee to do their best thinking and to find their own solutions, gain their insights and take actions. So I feel like coaching is a real kind of journey of self-discovery and self-learning that goes on.
And how would you respond to the thought if somebody was really stuck in their creative career and they said, well, I don't know the answers, I don't believe that I have got the answers? How would you reassure them that the coaching process would get the answers by the end of that period of time together?
Well, I think that the coach will definitely have every coach has a toolbox of resources, strategies, questions, models, things to try out in both in the session and outside of the session, which will help, if you like, unlock some of those boxes and reveal some of those insights which might be hidden. So it's rather than being kind of lots of kind of, if you like, very open questions, that it includes that, but it's also about where we can bring in tools and models which will help facilitate that thinking.
Brilliant, thank you. So I know we're going to touch on maybe some examples of models or examples of things that people can try. And how would you respond to that, Vanessa? What do you think the difference is between mentoring and coaching?
Yeah, so well, Kim's explained that beautifully. So what can I add? So coaching to me is a future-focused, forward-looking conversation where we look to move you from where you are today to where you would ideally like to be, the future you might like to create. If that is unclear, it might be taking you from how you feel right now to how you want to feel in the future. And it's taking this idea that you are fully resourced and whole, you've got all the answers inside of you. So coaching is about paying that really beautiful, respectful attention to that person in front of you so you can access your own inner wisdom and your own ideas first. Mentoring to me is, again, like Kim said, it's usually somebody that might be a little bit junior to you, or perhaps somebody in your team that's looking up to you. And it's about sharing the sort of breadth of your experience. It's if you can, obviously, first, I think you would really try and coach them. But then if you feel that they're struggling and there's a really obvious shortcut where your wisdom and experience can speed this learning process up for them, it's like, okay, this is the right moment to give this to them. This can really help them. But yeah, I do feel that mentoring is something that you almost have to put the mentoring hat on and ask permission around as well.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So I guess perhaps I would add to that that the mentoring relationship and the coaching relationship are established with the client, aren't they, at the very start? So it's what we would call in coaching, it's the contracting with the client, isn't it? So when you start a session with a client, together you define the parameters for the relationship. And in that setting the parameters, it's very unlike the way you establish many other relationships. And actually, there's something about that negotiating or finding your relationship parameters for excellence and achieving your goals together that is an incredible learning journey in itself, isn't it? I'm just wondering whether there's anything you could add in terms of that, both of your take on that contracting moment, you know, what you know, how you like to set up and establish that trust in the first session. Perhaps I could come to you, Kim, for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the initial conversation, if you like, the chemistry chat in before the contracting is so important.
Yeah.
To make sure that, you know, it's really clear what the client wants and needs from the coaching or mentoring. It's really, the coach really understands the issues and challenges, but also to establish that rapport and to make sure that the coach and the coachee are the right match for each other. But within that contracting, you know, it's also helping a new coachee particularly to understand, you know, if they haven't had coaching before, you know, having to understand the process, you know, making sure the contract includes things like ethics, includes things like their own goals, stated goals, which are theirs.
Yes.
So there's
yeah,
lots
that's a
of
great
structure
point
around that, I guess.
Yeah, so I guess we all adhere to a code of ethics, which is 100% confidentiality with our clients. So we're bound by that as coaches. Is there anything else you would add there, Vanessa, in terms of how you like to set up that space in the first instance?
Yeah, to me, it is completely about building rapport and trust and finding out what's going on. And the client might not necessarily know yet. They might just feel a discomfort. So it's not always so clear. So for me, it's about holding that space in the first instance and just maybe unpacking a little bit of what's going on, and then providing a sort of skeleton about, you know, a little sort of skeleton roadmap about roughly what each session might look like and what we might aim towards at the end. So it's giving them a sort of sense of what our coaching sessions will be like beforehand. And I'd be very interested to find out what experience, if any, they've had with previous coaches or mentoring, and also how they would like me to be as their coach. How do they need me to be? Do you need me to be challenging? Do you need me to be gentle? How can I support you best on this journey of transition?
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Again, if you guys have got any questions for our coaches, please pop them in the chat and I'll pick them up shortly. But we wanted to give you all an opportunity to know that the work that we do with our clients is often we work with leaders who are feeling exhausted, who may have suffered burnout, who may have lost their confidence, who may have had a tough time dealing with organizational change. Maybe they're feeling a bit disillusioned. Maybe they just need a bit of help in locating and articulating their strengths for their first and foremost before they move into another role, perhaps. So I've invited Kim and Vanessa to offer up some tips for you guys. So I wonder, could we come to you first, Kim? Would that be okay?
Absolutely. So I think with my clients, you know, leaders, team professionals in the cultural sector and the creative sector, there are kind of themes coming up a lot. And my 3 tips are around confidence, which is a very common issue, overwhelming clarity, and something about creativity. So the first thing I suppose I wanted to kind of think about is self-confidence, growing self-confidence through self-appreciation. I think one thing that many of us don't do is take the time to really reflect on what we've done well and what we're proud of. So I would ask a client, I'm going to ask you guys in the audience, just take a moment to think of a time when you were really proud of something that you achieved. Could be in your career, could be in your wider life. Think about that, and then think about what was it about you that made that successful. So thinking about where we've done things, where we've achieved things. And that could be raising a family, it could be opening an exhibition, it could be getting that dream job. We've all done those things before that make us proud. So connecting to those strengths and reflecting on how we can use those now can be really helpful. And a little second exercise you can do on this, kind of outside of this room, when you've got time, is to draw a horizontal line on a piece of paper where at the end of the line is now. And that line is your timeline of life or your career, whatever you're thinking about. And you mark with an X or whatever you want along the line. When are those moments that you've done something that you've been really proud of and you've achieved? And that's just an extension of the first one, but it's all about connecting with when you were proud and when you used your strengths. So that's the first one. I'll move on to the second one, because I know I'm kind of on the time limit. So the second one, a lot of the clients I have really have a lot of overwhelm. They spend a lot of their time thinking about small things, being drowned by small things, and really finding it hard to identify priorities and focus on priorities. So I've got a model which comes from Stephen Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, if some of you know that. So it's around a glass jar. So you imagine a glass jar, and you imagine on this side a pile of sand, a pile of small stones, and a pile of rocks. And you need to get you need to get the rocks and the sand and the big rocks and all into the jar. So it's about thinking about what you do first. And to cut a long story short, it's really important to get the big rocks in first. Otherwise, all of your jar will be filled up with sand and small stones and you won't get the big rocks in. And if we think about that jar as your time, and those rocks and sand as the things that you need to do and need to achieve, it's really important to identify what your big rocks are. Stephen Covey calls it scheduling your priorities and not prioritizing your schedule. And the simple act of identifying the things which are really important to you, and these do include not only your professional big rocks, but things that you want to put into your diary, like your holidays, maybe your yoga class, whatever it is. It's about making sure you're really clear about those 2 or 3 or 4 big rocks and asking yourself, am I spending enough time on those big rocks? Just remember the jar, and it can really help. That's the second one. I've still got time, Kerry, to do one more. So the last one I thought about is something I did with a client the other day. Many people join the creative industries and the cultural sector because they love creativity. And I have heard time and time again, and I've been in this, I've been a cultural leader myself, so I know, I don't feel like I'm being creative at all. I just feel like I'm a glorified admin person. So I did this exercise with this client. I use pie charts quite a lot. The joy of a pie chart, just for simplifying something. So if you draw a pie chart and you divide that into, say, your work chunk, maybe your family life, if you've got one with your family, children, and your you time. And the simple question, if we think about creativity, is if this pie chart is your life, what are you doing that's creative at each of those chunks of the pie chart? And there are probably lots of things. Make a list in each of those chunks. You know, it might be that you love, you know, creative planning when you're at work, or you love planning an exhibition, or you love, you know, doing this particular thing. Strategic thinking might be creative for you. You know, in your personal life, what are you doing that's creative? Make a list. Where are the areas where you feel like I need to do more creative things? And think about, in each of those chunks, what's the smallest step you can take today to add a little bit more creativity into your work and life? Because creativity, if you do it in one area of the pie chart, it will impact on the others. So that's my 3 tips around confidence, clarity, and creativity.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Kim. So just to recap, we're getting people to remember their moments of success and just tapping back into recognizing and giving ourselves credit for something. We're looking at those moments of success along a line that we've drawn just to see them mapped out, so that we can see between now and where we want to get to, that we can reproduce those moments of success. That's brilliant. We're making sure that we are thinking about prioritizing the big things we want in our life first, so we don't get sucked into the weeds, filling our glass jar with all those tiny little pebbles and sand and water, and then not having room for the stuff we really want. And then we're really thinking about making sure that we have, maybe you could summarize that for me, the last point, just to make sure that we are prioritizing our creativity in all areas of our life. Is that right?
Yeah, and that pie chart can be used for other things like well-being, but it's in this purpose. It's just about thinking about creativity more widely.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that. So as creatives and creative professionals, we're privileging our own strengths, our own creativity, and what we want out of life. Fabulous. Love those tips. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you.
So Vanessa, over to you.
Oh, thanks, Kerry. They were great, Kim. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so a bit similar to Kim's first one, mine are, I suppose. So my tip 1 is embrace positive thinking. I know this is everywhere in the world, but there's so much evidence to support this. And it's really, if you embrace positive thinking, it's really going to build momentum and help you move forward. And this comes up all the time, a lot of the time in coaching sessions. I'll be noticing limiting beliefs and thoughts that are holding people back. And so anyway, I think I'm wandering off slightly. So it's noticing how you talk to yourself and how also you talk to others, and shifting this towards positivity, and tweaking this will up-level your leadership and your confidence. So the thoughts and words we think and feel create feelings, and that impacts the way we feel, which is our emotional selves. And this affects how we show up energetically. The way we show up energetically is our leadership style. This is how we imbue information to people. So your energy is really important. This is your influence. So the thoughts and words that we say to ourselves, although they can feel really fleeting, they hold a great deal of power. So just to explain a little more, a few facts about the brain. We are wired for a negative bias. It's our survival brain. It's the brain that kept us safe, running away from the saber-toothed tiger that might eat us up. But obviously in this modern day world, we don't need to worry about those things. So, but our brain is still functioning in that ancient capacity. So we need to practice positive thinking because it isn't our natural way to think. Naturally, we generalize and we distort and we delete information, and it's quite natural to take the negative thoughts forward with us and not the positive ones. They often just slip right off our backs, and then it builds this lovely internal person called the inner critic. And you know, often the inner critic there's loads of information there, and it's usually got a pretty nasty voice that's saying, oh, you're rubbish at this, or you're useless, or you can't do this. That's the inner critic. So we want to get familiar with this part of ourselves. We need to start noticing, what are the words and thoughts that we repeat to ourselves? What are the words and thoughts that we're saying out loud to our team? So the thoughts, they become your reality. It can be a bit like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because what you're focusing on is what you're ultimately going to feel. So phrases to watch out for might be, oh, you know, I always do this, or I am ... an untidy person, an unmotivated person. Another phrase might be, I never, or this is impossible, or I can't, or you are X, Y, and Z. So change your thoughts, change your life. So how do we do this? We could, lots of ways, but one way is to start noticing and capturing them whenever you notice one of those. So you could draw a little stick man and you can start writing them on a whiteboard, or you can start writing them around. And what you really, that little stick man, and start to see them. And it's actually quite shocking when I've done it with clients and they've seen it. And it's usually a lot louder than anything else that's going on in the head. So we need to really rethink how we're going to frame these thoughts into a more positive way. And this is going to support you moving forward, and it's going to help you build momentum towards reaching your goals. Yes, and then my second tip is there's this lovely Maori quote called walking backwards into the future. So this is really looking to links in your past to really give you confidence and and to make you feel confident to sort of propel yourself forward. And so questions like, what are your natural inherited skills? What are your qualities? You know, what have you learned in your life? What are your most powerful success events in the past? What are 3 career headlines? What are 3 personal headlines? What do you know from your life experience that other people might not know? So I know, for example, that I'm really good at communicating, and I'm really good at reading body language, and I have very strong intuition and empathy. And I know that because I grew up in a home with three homes when I was younger from different classes, and I had to mold and adapt, and I had to learn to read all these things from a very early age. That skill has served me all the way through my life and my career, and it's a skill that I have improved, and that is what my coach training was all about. But it was definitely a skill that I've always had. So what challenges have you overcome? What are you cool at? What are you great at? You know, so really sort of noticing these things you've already got, but not only on a cerebral level, but really embedding them into your body, a felt level, feeling them and being thankful for them as well, because they are you. And then we could also do a little stick man with all of those things around it and start building up what I'm going to call your inner hero, which takes me to your third tip, which is nourishing and empowering your inner hero. And this is about, well, really my advice is to start collecting and asking for feedback immediately. So if you're feeling underconfident, you need to start recording positive comments straight away from anywhere in life. So I often tell clients to get a brag book, where you can literally pop things down. The neighbor says something complimentary about you, get it down. Someone in the workplace, get it down. You're feeding the inner hero. you know, which is often the quieter of the two, inner critic and a hero. So the other thing you can do is you can send an email to trusted colleagues and friends, and you can ask them some really simple questions, because often there's certain things we can't see, but our close friends can see. So things like, when have you seen me at my best? How does the room feel different when I walk into it? What are my qualities? What do I get passionate about? What's something that I can't seem to compromise on and would shout from the rooftops about? And if it feels embarrassing to do that, just say that your coach asked you to do it, and send it off, and you'll be amazed what comes back. And it is it can make you feel so good immediately. And then a second part of that tip is, once you've gathered all of these beautiful gifts, skills, strengths, and everything that you've collected about yourself, how are you going to add rocket fuel to that? So let's focus on these amazing things. Let's make them even better. So it's a lovely quote by Gary Vaynerchuk, that whether you're 9 or 90, stop trying to fix things you're bad at and focus things that you're good at. So really, like, go for it, and also model it and share it. So in the age we live in, where there's so much information, people are starving of wisdom. So model yourself sharing your strengths, especially to those people below you, so that we're very inclined to be modest and to hide and feel that it's vulgar. But actually, it's really useful to get to know everybody's strengths, because then it'll help you delegate, it'll help with work-life balance, communication, collaboration, everything. And they're my 3 top tips.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Vanessa. I love that. So I think we're starting with this idea of positivity. And I think rather than just saying positive affirmations to ourselves, I think the thing that you shared that was really key to me is that actually words really do matter. And the voice that we nurture becomes a reality. So our thoughts become our feelings, and our feelings drive our actions, and our actions drive our results. So if we have a negative thought, and I worked with a client today where, they have a thought that it is hard. When we think it is hard, our body shrinks, right? So we feel like, oh, so everything feels hard. So every action that comes from that is like, oh. So, we change our thought, like, actually, I find it easy. Actually, so suddenly our body changes. And if we feel different, then we can have a different action that's going to affect our different result. So I love that. And I think for those of us that a lot of women experience this, and I'm sure, and a lot of guys too, but it's certainly something that I experience in coaching. I don't know about you guys, but where we are encouraged to hide our light under a bushel, and I think there is something about modeling for the women behind us that actually, being confident about what we're good at doesn't mean that we think we're great at everything, because none of us are, but actually acknowledging and accepting that we've worked hard to be good at some things. So I love the fact that you could say it so calmly, and you model that for us actually here, like, I'm good at this. It might have come out of challenging circumstances, but now it works to my favor. So I think that's a beautiful way of modeling that. Walking backwards into the future, I love that, because I'm a creative, I'm a visual creature. I think visually. So these tips that both Kim and Vanessa are giving you, I hope, as creative coaches, these visual aids, these visual tools are really important for us guys that are in the creative industries, because sometimes we live in our heads, right? So to move from our thinking head, it's not divorced from the rest of our body. Just having that visual of us moving and actually taking action, being proactively moving ourselves, giving ourselves agency. Love that. So thank you. And then thinking about those headlines and collecting positivity. I'm sure you guys did it when you did your creative coaching training. I did too. And I, like so many of us here, I'm a creative introvert, and the thought of asking people for feedback on myself was so cringe and so embarrassing. But, I chose some different people. I chose people that I worked with when I worked at Somerset House that I would have been surprised if they even noticed something I'd done, you know. So I got a pair and I asked them. And I also asked my stepmom, which was a really, you know, that was an unusual. So I changed a range of people that I invited, and I asked some questions, and I was so shocked by what came back. And especially from my stepmom, who I think she said that she thought I was brave. And I never thought she would have thought that of me. Do you know? But there was something in, oh, if somebody else thought that of me, maybe I could be. Do you know, like maybe I could be that person. Maybe I am brave. Do you know? So there's something about that suggestion that you've offered up that helps us to just take a little zoom out and just see ourselves a little bit from over here. And if we've taken a bit of a bashing as a creative leader or in our work, our day-to-day, sometimes we need a little bit of guidance to do that zooming out, don't we? It's for somebody to say, hang on a second, that's a thought. It's not a fact. It's not an actual objective reality. It's something that is coming through your lens, your filter. So all of the stories you've got in your head are stories, and having somebody there to playfully challenge them is what helps you to start getting traction. So thank you so much, both. Such beautiful, beautiful contributions. So I have lots of questions for you. So I'm going to invite Kim back into the room, if that's all right, Naomi. And I'm going to invite you guys to put any questions in the chat. I love that. Thank you, Yolanda. A lot of work ahead. Do you know what I'm going to offer up there, Yolanda, that actually it's an exciting journey when you know that you can learn some new tools that are going to help you have a positive experience or start changing that. So I love that. And Laura, thank you. Lots to reflect on. That's great. And Hira, thank you. That's such good points from both of them, actually. And the activity is really great. I think I'm wondering if there's something in your particular situation at the moment that you thinking this one of these tools or tips might be useful, because whatever you're prepared to share in the chat will also lift somebody else up. If there's something you're going through that is particularly challenging and you would like to do a little bit more work on, just let somebody else know. Tell us what's happening for you that you think would be useful to think differently about. And whilst you're having a think about what you're happy and prepared to share or questions that you're going to ask, I'm just going to come back to you guys and ask something about what happens when you're starting new with a client. Let's say they've had a bit of a confidence kick in. You know, whether it's the pandemic, whether they've just been managing, like dealing with personal life situation, maybe they've been through a breakup, maybe there's lots of other things happening in their life that has affected their confidence at work. Maybe they're going through the menopause, maybe they're going through divorce. There's so many things that have a knock-on effect to how we show up at work. If somebody comes to you and they're feeling like super low or like not great about themselves, how do you start getting them to gently reflect differently on themselves? Where would you start if somebody was really not able to move straight into those exercises?
Who would you like to go?
Vanessa, you go for it.
Oh yeah, so that happened. To me, I would give them the analogy of a battery. So, you know, red, amber, green. So red, you're really flat, you're really deflated, you really are lacking that kind of energy. Amber, middle, and green, you're rearing to go. I'd really get them to scale themselves on that. And if they're a red, this is self-care. So how can we compassionately support ourselves before we honor the work we're going to do here? What are the initial steps we can do to get us to an amber? And when we're at an amber, how can we get ourselves to a green? Because really, we need to be in a quite a upbeat, positive, energetic space to really see resolutions and to really access really wonderful thinking. If we're in a real suffering state, we really need to get you over and move you over into a more empowering, positive state. So work would really, for me, start there.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Kim, what's your take on that?
Well, I think my take is that right back to the original chemistry contracting chat, you know, we're talking about coaching the holistic person, not necessarily just the leader.
Yeah.
And there are questions that, there are questions that come up, are there, how is work impacting on personal life, if that's relevant, vice versa. I work with a lot of women in kind of midlife. One of the questions is around kind of the menopause and what impacts that having. So I think that there's some exploration about what they are comfortable talking about, what they're comfortable bringing into the coaching. Because it's while coaching isn't therapy, it's recognizing that we might be working on professional goals, but there may well be personal impacts.
Yeah.
So I think for me, the first stage is about, obviously we set the goals. And if the goal is, I want to feel better, I want to be more confident, it's kind of really taking time to explore that reality of why, where the confidence issues are and what's happening around them and around that leadership role that might impact on that.
Yeah, I love that. I think with creative people in particular, we feel things deeply. We experience the world in kind of technicolor, if you like. So we experience it in 5D. So one of the reasons that we wanted to start the coaching and mentoring support for creatives in particular was because we recognize that even if you work really hard, unless you have the emotional kind of tools, I suppose, to support you through that roller coaster that you experience, so that you're not always at the ebb and flow of other people's opinions or actions or results, so that really you're getting centered here first and foremost. So you're identifying what is it that matters to you, what do you care about, what do you want to change, and there may well be some other relationships or stories or things that actually you don't want to repeat in the future. So we do look at the past and the things that have contributed to you being you. But actually, we don't stay in the past thinking actually that we're going to fix that. We become aware of it. So some coaches have different tools that actually look at some of those parts. Some people call them their parts or characters that might be in the room with us. So we're aware sometimes of whose voice might suddenly appear in the room. So, that may be, for example, I work with somebody who recognized that the way they felt about a particular person was reminiscent of how they felt about their mum. And so their response to being in relation to them to make a show happen was really coming from an old wound, if you like. So just knowing that means that we can then design some future actions, if you like. So I think you're absolutely right to pull out the fact that it's not therapy, but there is 100% acknowledgement of what makes you you, and that's the good, the bad, and what you might think is ugly, but actually can serve you in a different way if we can offer some reframes in that sense. I think that's brilliant. So we've got a couple of questions here. Thank you so much for asking, Kim. So thank you for those helpful, generous points, Kim and Vanessa. How do you guide your clients when they're on a newish path or redefining the balance or emphasis in their life, while still honouring the work that they've achieved previously that might be less relevant to their path now? So how do you guide your clients when they're on a newish path or redefining the balance or emphasis in their life while still honouring the work that they've achieved? So let's think a practical thought of how that might be. So Kim, without going into specifics of your situation, but how might you respond to that question?
Well, I mentioned earlier that one of my passions is supporting people through transition. And I do a lot of work with clients who are potentially starting a new path, leaving an old one, starting a new one, and helping them to understand that change is one thing, transition is something that is the psychological journey we go through, and that process, which is ending one stage, then this kind of middle, slightly confusing bit in the middle, and then the new beginning. And within that, we talk about, what are you letting go of? What are you bringing with you? What does that confusing bit in the middle feel like? What are you looking towards? What's waiting in the wings? So it's really understanding that process and where they sit in it, and bringing some of that expertise, I think, that I have when I work with clients who are going through that kind of moment, and helping them understand that where they're feeling, what they're feeling is totally normal, and giving them some kind of strategies to be able to see the good, but also be able to let go of some stuff and take and be on that path and understand that it's a journey.
Yeah, thank you. Vanessa, what would your take be on that?
Yeah, so for me, this is about identity, and we really struggle with this. We really struggle to grasp that we can be more than one thing. We're quite binary in this sense, you know, we are more than one thing. I'm a mother, I'm a business owner, you know, I'm many, many things. And I think it's really sort of embracing all of who you are. Everything is relevant here. You know, remembering that we're on a path. Most people's paths are wiggly ones, and a lot of these skills, a lot of what you've learned you'll be taking forward with you. So the first step really is noticing, you know, about yourself, that self-awareness piece, getting really comfortable of all those gifts, all those skills, all those abilities, you know, the link to the past that we talked about is going to help propel you into the future. Getting really comfortable from an honest position of where you are now, and then really start setting that vision for the future. You know, not in stone, maybe playfully at first, but start thinking about that North Star that we're going to start moving towards. But yeah, not to worry, you're all one person, one life, one story. It's just the way we think about things. We tend to like to put ourselves in little boxes, and that's not really the colourful life that people lead.
Yeah, I think I'd like to add to that, Kim Pace. This Friday's Beat the Block is also that's a newsletter that we send out to subscribers every Friday. Is borrowing from Charles Handy's S-curve model, which, as Vanessa was saying, it's an S-curve of learning. And I think I've just used it as a way of giving an example in the creative industries of how, if we think about learning being a lovely, gorgeous, voluptuous S, and we start at the beginning, at the bottom of the S, and it's like a bit like scratchy and itchy because it's a new thing, and we kind of get a bit frustrated with ourselves. And then we have a rapid ascension up the curve of the S, and we start mastering something, and then we start leveling out and plateauing a bit. And that's when maybe we're doing something and we're getting comfortable, and maybe we start doing something repetitive, or we know that actually the magic isn't there. And so as a creative, we tend to seek out those new territories, that new part of the S bend. And so we willingly put ourselves into position where we're on a continuous S. So I give you, for example, you know, you might be starting a new, maybe you've gone freelance after being years and years teaching, for example, And so you find yourself at the bottom of the S again. And it's that really feels a bit uncomfortable at first because you're used to being an expert. You're an expert and you've got a range of people that you get feedback from very quickly. And you know when you're doing a great job. And so that is a different part to be at. The bottom of the S curve feels a bit like, oh, God, like I've got to hustle or whatever it is your mindset goes into where it feels hard. But actually, you've just willingly given yourself a new S curve to be on. So when we start thinking of ourselves of seeking that out, that's part of our journey, then we actually start getting more comfortable with being a bit shit at first and then just allowing ourselves to start accelerating. And the bit that we should be mindful of is the bit where we start plateauing, actually. So I would just say, whatever it is that you are letting go of or moving towards, I would celebrate it because you've had the good sense to know when you are ready for a new adventure, and also that you will become more brave and resilient from putting yourself through that gorgeous S curve. So I agree, we are many people, but also we don't abandon all of that learning and experience. Like these guys were saying, we take it with us. So it's not a hierarchical S. You can have many S's. You can have many, and you could be running them simultaneously in your love life, in your family life, in your work life. So I hope that's helpful. But just to say, the glorious thing about working with one of our brilliant coaches, or indeed any coach that you should connect with and gel with, that's where you're going to get some magic happening, because there's something about letting somebody see you, having an intimate relationship with somebody on your terms as an equal, where you get to explore the possibilities of your thinking, where your thinking can suddenly be exploded into new territories, where you're not limiting your capabilities, but instead you're really seeing some new options with somebody. So the conversation with our clients and our coaches here is there is this third character in the room with us, which is the conversation, the dialogue that comes as a result of you two coming together. So this third character, in a way, means that we can stand back and say, oh, isn't that interesting? Look what we've produced together. Our discussion has created this new option here. What do we think about that? And there's something in the objectivity of that suddenly helps us to feel and see a little bit more clearly. Does that resonate with you guys in your experience? Kim and Vanessa? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beautifully. Absolutely. That's the magic of coaching.
Brilliant. So listen, I know that we want to keep you, give you the opportunities to go and have your dinner and a glass of something or a sparkling water. So I know that hopefully there'll be something here I'm hoping that you've taken away. I know that I've learned something from Kim and Vanessa tonight, and I'm extraordinarily lucky to work with these guys. They're part of our associate coaching program because they are 100% committed to getting our clients results. We work with them because we know they're the real deal. They walk the talk and they bring results for the clients they work with, and they are excited at the possibility of working with you. So Naomi has put in links to find out more about how you can work with our coaches, but we do things a little bit different here at Kerry Hand in that we give everybody an opportunity to get value from our coaches in one session. So if you chose to book a 1 hour session with either Vanessa and Kim, in that 1 hour, you are going to walk away with clarity or some new thoughts on how you could approach something. Whatever happens, whether you decide to work together or not, that's our promise to you. All our coaches deliver value in just 1 hour. You can move mountains. But at the end of that hour, you can decide whether you want to continue working together So in our experience, everyone usually signs up for more sessions because so much happens in that first session. But you can find out about that on the website. But also our wonderful Naomi here knows our coaches well. She works with them and she can match people. So if you're not sure whether Kim or Vanessa or one of our other coaches is right for you, you can also reach out hello@kerryhand.com. Naomi will pop it in the chat and you can find out, and she can help find the perfect person for you. The one thing I want you to walk away with is you really don't have to walk on this creative journey alone. We're 100% committed to getting you results. And as you can see from our coaches this evening, they can give you some practical tips for moving and getting some traction, but also they'll hold space for you achieving extraordinary things in your life. So thank you, Vanessa and Kim, for showing up this evening and giving us your time for free in the hope that we can offer some value to everyone tonight. I hope you guys have found it useful. I can see in the comments you did. So thank you so much for coming tonight. And we will be sharing this recording. So if you would like to watch again, then Naomi will be getting that online for you guys in the not too distant future. So look out for an email coming your way in the not too distant future. But I hope you'll put your hands together in the comments chat for Vanessa and Kim. Thank you so much. You're amazing. Good night, everybody.